And we've seen some fantastic things this morning. And I want to start by telling you a story about when I was really little. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're looking at me and you're saying, Jude, this must be a good story, because you look like someone who always was obedient to your parents. Is that what you're thinking? You look like you were a perfect child. I know that's what you're thinking, and it is why you will be shocked to find out that that was not 100% true. You see, one day when I was a really little girl, we went to a shopping center. And I was not in a good mood. So as we were traveling up an escalator, I turned around and sat down. I was having nothing to do with this. And my parents said, and they used my full name, Judith, get up. And I did not listen to them. And we were getting near the top, and I couldn't see that because it was behind me. And they said, Judith, you need to get up. We're getting near the top. But I would not listen, and I would not do what they said. And do you know what happened? My dress started getting caught in the top of the escalator. It started to get caught in the mechanism, and my dad had to scoop me up and rip my dress to get me out. You see, they knew what was coming up. They knew the danger that was behind me, and they loved me, but I would not listen to them, and I would not obey them. And as a result, I was almost eaten by an escalator, or I almost broke an escalator. I don't know which one is actually true. But that's what happened to me. And we saw another example earlier, didn't we, of people who were not listening and not following instructions. Lydia and Josh were not listening, and they were not following instructions. Josh, he had his earphones in. He wasn't listening to a word the YouTube video gave. And Lydia, she heard, but she thought she could do it better herself. You see, it's really important that we listen to and obey people who care about us and know what's best. And if we follow God, we know that He always knows what's best for us. So it's really important that we listen to Him and obey Him. That's true whether we're really little or whether we're the oldest people in the room. And thankfully this morning, we also had a good example, not just bad examples. We had a brilliant example in Joshua. Joshua was leading the army, and God gave him very specific instructions. He gave him instructions that may not have made much sense. He said to Joshua, this is what you need to do. You need to get the priests and the army, get them all up early in the morning, go out and walk around the city of Jericho, and then come back to camp. That's it. And on day 2, everybody get up, walk around the city of Jericho. The priests are going to blow a trumpet, but then you just come back to camp. And they had to do that on day 3, and day 4, and day 5, and day 6. And they did it. And then on day 7, there were really specific instructions, different instructions this time. They had to go round 7 times. 6 times they went round, marching round, and nothing seemed to be happening. But on the 7th time, as the priests blew their trumpets and the people shouted, the walls of the city fell down, and Joshua and his armies won the battle. God did an absolute miracle. But Joshua had to listen to and obey God, because God knew what was best. Now, I want you to watch a very short video clip. And in this video clip, I want you to ask yourself, is this a good or a bad example of listening to and following instructions or obeying? Have a watch. I love that video. The first 2 dogs are so good, aren't they? They listen, they obey, and then the 3rd dog seems to do anything except obey their owner's instructions. And it really reminded me that listening to and obeying God is not always easy. And I was thinking about that for Joshua. It must have been so difficult for Joshua. I could think of at least 3 reasons why it would be really difficult. The first reason is Joshua is a new leader and he's in charge of this whole army and all these priests. He's just gone somewhere new. He could have been just so distracted by what he was doing. He could have been so busy trying to take care of this army and these priests that it would have been really easy for him to not take the time to listen to God. Or he might have thought, I know how battles go, and just done what he thought was best. The second reason I think it would have been easy for Joshua to not do what God said was he might have been afraid of looking silly. People could have laughed at him. He wasn't doing what people normally did. He was just walking around a wall. That would have been something that he might have thought, I'm just going to look silly doing this. And the third reason I think it could have been difficult was actually he had to trust God when he wasn't seeing anything happen. Have you thought about this? Day one, he gets up, he goes round, goes back to camp, nothing. Day two, up, round, back to camp, nothing. Day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. And then 6 times on day 7 he goes round, and the Bible doesn't tell us there's even a crack, not even a crack in the wall. In all of that time, he had to trust that God knew best and keep going. It was only on the 7th time round that the walls totally collapsed. And that made me think, it's true for us as well, isn't it? It can be really hard to listen to God and to obey him. We have so many distractions in our life, like that dog who's distracted by so many good things that they didn't listen to the most important voice. That can be us. Do we take time to read the Bible, to know what God wants from our lives, to pray and ask for his direction in this busy life that we lead? The second reason it can be difficult for us is that actually we're worried about looking silly or people making fun of us or being nasty to us. Sometimes if you say that you're a Christian, you might be the only Christian in your school or the only Christian in your workplace. And people might make nasty comments about it, or they might make fun of you, and that's really difficult. The third reason I can think it's difficult is God asks us to trust before we see all the results. Sometimes we are doing what God has asked us to do, but we haven't seen any results yet. And in that middle part, we need to go on trusting and obeying God. Maybe God's asked you to show love to someone and you're showing love to them, but they are not responding. Maybe God's asked you to share about Jesus with someone and they don't seem interested. Continuing to trust God when you're not seeing the results yet, that can be hard. But if we look at the story of Joshua, we see it's worth it. Listening to God and obeying him is worth it because he always knows what's best. And we can trust him that he does know what's best as we listen to him and obey him.